A gun, a body, and the ghosts of high school. I never thought I'd be writing something like this. I still can't believe it happened, but I need to get it out. Maybe it'll help me process everything. Maybe it'll help me sleep at night. Or maybe it'll just make it worse. Either way, here it is. This happened in Niagara Falls just a couple of months ago. I grew up here, went to school here, and never really left. You hear about crazy stuff happening on the news, but you don't expect it to be someone you know. Someone you used to laugh with, share notes with in class, maybe even get drunk with a couple of times. But life is weird like that. People change. Or maybe they were always like this and we just didn't see it. It started on a random Thursday evening. I was walking home from work, same way I always do. I cut through this little park near my apartment because it shaves off a couple of minutes. Plus, it's peaceful, usually. That night, though, something felt off. You ever get that gut feeling like something isn't right? I had that, but I ignored it. Then I saw it. A smoking gun, just lying there on the pavement near a bench. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. A gun? In the middle of the park? My brain tried to make sense of it. Maybe it was fake. Maybe someone dropped it. But then I saw the body. A man, lying on his side, face turned away. His shirt was dark, but I could see the blood pooling beneath him. The way his arm was twisted, it didn't look right. I felt my stomach drop. I froze. I don't know how long I stood there, just staring, but it felt like forever. Then my body caught up to my brain and I called 911. The cops came fast. I stayed back like they told me to. They asked if I saw what happened, if I heard anything. I told them no, just that I found the body. They asked if I knew the guy. At first I said no, but then one of the officers flipped him over. I did know him. His name was Mike. We went to high school together. We weren't best friends or anything, but we hung out in the same circles, played on the same basketball team. He was one of those guys everyone liked, funny, easygoing. I hadn't seen him in years, but I never would have thought he'd end up like this. The cops told me to go home, said they'd be in touch if they needed anything else. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him lying there. Over the next few days, I kept checking the news. They didn't release much at first, just that a man had been shot in the park and they were investigating. No suspects, no leads. I thought about reaching out to some old high school friends, see if anyone knew what Mike had been up to, but I didn't. Something about it felt wrong. Then about a week later, they arrested someone. His name was Greg, and he was another guy from our high school. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't talked to Greg in years, but back then he was kind of the quiet type, smart but always in Mike's shadow. Mike was the popular one, the one people wanted to be around. Greg wasn't. He was the guy who always got second place, the guy people forgot about. I guess he never forgot about Mike. The police said it was jealousy, that Greg had been holding on to resentment for years, that he blamed Mike for everything that went wrong in his life, losing jobs, failed relationships, never feeling like he was good enough. And I guess, at some point, he snapped. They found texts on his phone, messages he never sent but drafted over and over, about how Mike ruined his life, about how Mike didn't deserve everything he had, about how Mike should have paid a long time ago. What shook me the most was that Greg had planned this for months. The police said he had been following Mike, watching him. They even found a notebook in Greg's apartment with disturbing notes, entries where he detailed different ways he could get rid of Mike. Some were messy, some were calculated. It was like he was testing out ideas, seeing which one would work best. What I couldn't wrap my head around was why now? Why after all these years did Greg finally act on his hate? I reached out to an old friend, Jake, who still kept in touch with some of our classmates. When I brought up Mike and Greg, he went quiet. Then he sighed and told me what he knew. Apparently, Greg had seen Mike recently. It wasn't some random thing. Mike had moved back to Niagara Falls a few months earlier. He had landed a pretty good job, was dating someone new, and from what Jake said, he was doing well. Greg must have seen that and snapped. I wondered if Mike had any idea Greg hated him that much, if he ever saw him watching, if he felt that same gut feeling I did that night in the park, but ignored it. The trial was brutal. Greg showed no emotion. He didn't even deny it. He just sat there, listening. The prosecution presented their case, talked about the years of resentment, the premeditation, the way he just walked up to Mike in that park and shot him in the back. Cold, no hesitation. Mike's family was there. His mom sobbed the entire time. His dad looked hollow, like he had nothing left in him. Seeing them like that, it made me think about my own parents. How they'd react if it was me lying in that park. Greg got life in prison, no chance of parole. I thought that would bring closure, but it didn't. I still think about it, about how close we all used to be back when things were simple. Before life took us in different directions, before one of us decided that old wounds were worth killing over. I don't know what I expected when I found that gun, but I sure as hell didn't expect this. And I don't think I'll ever look at an old friend the same way again.